I'm Brandon Miller, and you are listening to Coach. This weekly series dives deep into the world of CliftonStrengths and how they impact your daily life. Hear from certified strengths coaches on the ins and outs, quirks, and characteristics of all 34 strengths and 4 domains and how they play out in real life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Strengths Whisperer Season 2, Coach to Coach. Today, I have the privilege of spending time with Brent O'Bannon at BrentO'Bannon.com, and we are talking about the influencing domain. That's right. We've spent several weeks hearing about each of several influencing, executing, relationship building, and strategic thinking strengths, and now we're going to focus into one domain. Brent, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, it is a delight to see you and be on a podcast with you, Brandon, from our early days in Gallup training.
That's right. So we're the original group. I had another one of our classmates on recently, Sarah Robinson. We were three of the seven that braved the Omaha winter of 2013.
And I don't know if you remember, but you and I did a lot of peer coaching. We did the winner's card exercise for each other. So yeah, we did a lot of bonding and growing together.
It's fun that you said that. I actually saw that card recently and brought back good memories of our time. That would have been February of 2013, which coincidentally is the day that I unveiled the 34-strong first mock-up of our logo and our company. Brent, for the sake of our listeners today, can you please tell them a little bit about what you're up to and where they might find you?
Yeah, as a master certified coach with the International Coaching Federation, I definitely do workplace training. We also have masterminds and also executive coaching. And so I like to say our purpose as a company, Strengths Champion Solutions, is we are called to champion strengths around the world for human flourishing. And that's really my heart, is not just helping people to survive, which I did in the past as a licensed professional counselor, but when I made the shift and pivot to become more of a strengths-based coach, it's about how can we help people thrive and flourish and in all areas of their well-being.
That's great, Brandon. Tell us what that looks like. What are some of the services you're offering? People go to your website, find you, and they're going to see different options. What kind of things are you putting out there into the world to support human flourishing?
Well, number one is we definitely have organizations that want either ongoing training or one-off training. So a variety of different types of workshops. But just like you, all of the training and workshops and keynotes that I do is strengths-based. So I'm a practitioner at heart as well. So integrating strengths with psychological safety, integrating strengths with wellness, with conflict resolution, with teamwork, all of these are exciting to me. The second part, which is a little bit more unique in my sense, is masterminding. And so masterminding is one of the best ways that I have grown as a person, a leader, and my business as well. So I actually had a mastermind for 10 years in my home. And that's actually where I discovered strengths, is through a business coach who attended a mastermind in my home. And so now we have 4 different types of masterminds. We have an HR mastermind, a leadership mastermind, a strengths champion mastermind, which is really more mentor coaching for other strengths champions, and then also a strengthspreneur mastermind. So those small business owners, solopreneurs with a small team, is really integrating strengths with business building. And then, of course, the third piece is that executive coaching and going deep with leadership and developing them.
Excellent, Brent. Thank you so much. You're a very early adopter in the strengths movement. You are and have always been very far out in front. And so today's topic, as we unpack domains, is something that you are absolutely an expert in. And I'm wondering, as we move from strength to strength to now thinking about a domain, can you help our listeners understand these categories and how they were put together? And then we're going to move our way over into the specific one we're covering today in the influence domain.
You bet. Of course, we want to direct everybody to strengths-based leadership. That original book is where Gallup really codified the whole concept of 4 domains of leadership. And I'm not sure who actually came up with this term also, but also think of the 4 domains of leadership as also 4 domains or 4 demands of life and business. So when we think about those domains in what order they go, there's not necessarily a particular order. Personally, I like to use the dog sledding analogy to help me think of the 4 domains from a dog sledding experience my wife and I went on. And so as we were talking to this business owner who does just dog sledding, and he was teaching us about that there are 4 pairs of dogs that are harnessed together and pull the sled. And he took us through the first 2 dogs. He said, Brent, these are what we call the lead dogs. And he said, they're not the smartest. They're not the fastest. He said, but they're the best listeners. They listen to the commands of the driver, the leader, and they get you to the destination. And I liken these lead dogs to the executing domain. So they're all about working harder, getting things done. Then he took us to the next 2 dogs. And he said, Brent,
I just want to say, we really appreciate you executors out there.
Yes, we do.
You all, we have a saying internal, that's the group that gets the you-know-what done, right? They just get it done.
That follow through, get it across the finish line. They're all about production. Yes. And then he took us to the next 2 dogs. And he said, Brent, these are called the point dogs. And he said, literally, they have this vision of possibility and they put this gentle pressure on the lead dogs. And I liken this to the strategic thinking domain, that they help us to think smarter. They help us to visualize, to innovate, to disrupt, to have better systems, processes. They help us work smarter, not just harder.
Yeah, and just to think in regards to those 2 domains you started with there, how symbiotic they can be. So the one that those achievers and responsibilities and focus, right, and they're so locked in where that objective, high level view that the thinkers can give them, so that they know where to aim all that power, and great synergy there. I'm looking forward to unpack those. All right, who are the next 2 dogs?
Yeah, so he took us to the next 2 dogs. These are the swing dogs. And this is really the influencing domain. And literally, they take an older dog and a younger dog and they harness them together. The older dog, has a lot of trail experience. The younger dog has all this energy. So literally, they influence each other to bring out the best. They motivate faster. And of course, that ultimately is the orange. That's the influencing strengths. And, these strengths are all about how can we sell? How can we get the message out? How can we market? How can we share the vision with the world and get the world to go with us? And then finally, he took us to the last 2 dogs, which he called the wheel dogs. And literally, he said, Brent, these are the biggest hearted, the strongest, and most diligent dogs on the team. And all they want to do is pull the sled and please you. These are the relationship building strengths. Literally, they give us that ability to care better, social intelligence, emotional intelligence, for sure. So all of these 4 domains and these dogs are aligned together and they are getting to the destination.
All right, so let's start to unpack a little bit. So when you think inside of these groupings, how how does that help us sort that? You mentioned strengths-based leadership, and domains can be not so clear to people. Why were they grouped this way? Why might it seem that some are maybe miscategorized, or how they got there? And then we're going to dive deep into influence. So when you think about the domains in general, and consider how they can help us in the classification of strengths, especially for coaches out there listening to this, and we're bringing some insights perhaps that would be good for them.
Well, number one, the research that was done on this, of course, is proprietary to Gallup, and how they arrange the themes, talent themes, into each of the domains. But the whole premise is that achiever, arranger, belief, consistency, deliberative, discipline, focus, responsibility, restorative, their whole drive is about executing. And then, of course, strategic thinking, analytical, context, futuristic, ideation, input, intellection, learner, strategic. The drive behind these is really that vision. And then I know you want to go deeper into influencing, which is activator, command, communication, competition, maximizer, self-assurance, significance, and woo. And then finally, on the fourth, of course, is the relationship building, which is adaptability, connectedness, developer, empathy, harmony, includer, individualization, positivity, and relator. But I think one important thing, just as a reminder, many coaches know this, is that just because we have certain themes that are in one domain does not mean that they cannot produce the behaviors of another domain. So, for example, if I only have one strategic thinking theme in my top 10, which is futuristic, I have to rely on other themes and also complementary partnerships with other people to help me to be better in thinking long-term and more strategic.
Thank you, Brent. And listeners, this is Brent O'Bannon, BrentO'Bannon.com, speaking training. And I love the emphasis, Brent, that you put on masterminding and, of course, executive coaching with his master certified coach designation. Brent, as we're going to turn the conversation to dive deep into influence, and we're thinking about woo, communication, activator, command, competition, self-assurance, maximizer, significance. We both know that this domain houses the rarest of all of the strengths in the world by how they're showing up on these reports. So this domain has some weight to it. We also know it's the least represented domain. So in any given team, if you average somewhere around 15% of your strengths here, you're on point. Many sectors, that number will come in lower. And if you're in a room of CEOs or salespeople, it probably will come in higher. So you're going to see these strengths collect around certain spaces and places, but you can't not know when they're there. They're impossible to miss. If you got a woo on the team, you all know you have one. Even if you didn't know they were a woo, we promise you know who that person is once that designation is clarified with a StrengthsFinder assessment. So, Brent, let's dive in. Let's talk to folks today about this influencing domain.
Well, John Maxwell, who is a leadership guru, says ultimately that leadership is influence. And the influencing theme, the desire to move people, to influence people to do things, that the way that they influence are so different. So how an activator may give that gentle push to get started, someone with woo may give that gentle encouragement. And so the way that they influence is totally different. Even though they're different, there are some similarities. For example, I sometimes think that competition and even maximizer can have some similarities in the sense that competition compares ourselves with others to see what we can do to be the best and to win. Well, maximizer might compare quality and excellence with others. And what do we need to do to have the best excellence in our product and our service. So influence ultimately, though, needs trust, because you cannot get followers or people to follow you unless they trust you and there's authenticity. And so, as we know, with all of these 34 talents, you can have raw, undeveloped influencing themes, and you can have refined, developed influencing themes. And that takes work and investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like how the late great Kurt Liesfeld, when he defined domains for us, he said, they're short walls, right? They're going to be a collection of these strengths, but they don't define individually how they work, nor does it define you, as you said well, that if you're missing a strength in one domain, that you lack the ability to do what the domain describes. I know many people with high achiever responsibility who are very influential with how they lead and the example they set and the model that they put out there. And so we know that each of these can describe. I happen to be one who doesn't have I have a whole domain missing in my top strengths. And, when I think about that, I know that I'm not deficient in the ability to do what that domain is. It just means I get there different. I'm going to go through the door of the domain that I likely lean into, which in our case is influence. And so in thinking about this particular domain, I do appreciate that a big calling card of this domain is this ability to sell ideas, to transmit their enthusiasm around a concept, to transmit the imperative or persuasive power to move people to action with this particular collection of strengths. And I'm wondering if you can help bring some light to that, because you too, I think 5 out of 10 of your top 10 live in this domain as well. And maybe you and I can even dive a little bit into how that works in our own experience.
Yeah, great overview. And, helping people understand that, yes, it's a short wall in between these. And sometimes we even say it's like a chain link fence. So you can see through these walls. In fact, they don't need to be labels or walls to the point of constricting, but it needs to just be a concept and a framework. In fact, if you think of it as demands of life and business, all of us have to make decisions and make plans. That's a strategic part. All of us have to influence other people to go with us. And then also, how do we retain relationships? How do we keep a team? How do we keep people on board? And you need a team to get more done, to execute. So all 4 domains definitely flow together. But for me, trying to get it a little bit more personal, I can't turn influencing off. If I'm with my grandkids, I'm going to be looking for opportunities to teach them, to inspire them, to consider something they haven't even considered, because I'm thinking of, like, who are they going to be when they're a teenager, or who they're going to be when they're an adult. So I'm influencing them. Even my friends, of course, they help ground me, but yet I can't turn off that I might share something that inspired me, and I'm hoping, this is going to inspire them. Maybe it's a book I read or a story I heard or something like that, but I can't turn it off.
I love that you just said that with grandkids. This last weekend, I had occasion to go see Harold. He's my oldest grandson. He's 6 years old. And Harold had a soccer game, and it was the last one of the year. And my son Lance is the coach. So it's a chance to see my son coaching his son, and really special occasion. And as I thought about taking the trek, they live a little ways away, so we got to make a day of it. As I thought about the trek, I thought, what can I bring for my grandson? What can I deliver when I go by B-Paw? So when B-Paw shows up, what is it that I want to contribute to my grandson? And so I began to think about a book, or I began to think about something he could read. And I found this hero storybook, and this hero storybook happened to be based upon biblical characters. So I thought, oh, what a cool storybook. He gets some influence from our shared faith. He gets some influence from these stories of brave people who did cool things. And so I can't, as you said, I can't not think that way. And one of the ways to think about a domain, coaches, as you're listening today, is that whatever domain you lean into, Brent said it so well, it's the one that the other strengths or the other domains will serve that particular domain naturally. So for example, I'm high strategic, but I'm very high in influencing strengths. So my strategy often works to think about how I'm going to influence. I'm high achiever. My stamina will come to play in how I influence. If I were to take away those influencing strengths, insert executing, and let's say I'm an executor with woo, my woo may affect how I execute or what stuff we're going to get done. So that default, because you said it really well, I think the domains give us a really good picture of the things that we can't unbe if we tried, to not have that ability to think about, well, what impact am I making? What are we doing here today? What did I just spend my time with? Did I leave a positive impact here? Did I transmit some sort of inspiration, motivation? What did I give here to benefit the person that I'm talking to? Is that sort of in line, Brent, with where you were taking us just there?
Yeah, Paul. I like that. And also I think one thing that
we're just two grandpas just rapping here.
That's right.
You all are listening in. Just a couple grandpas.
We got the gray going on here.
That's right. That's right. We earned this gray. For those of you getting to see the video, you'll see the gray hair shining through these days.
Yes, absolutely. And one other word that just popped inside of me, maybe it's because I felt it from you on this podcast, is energy. When you think of influencing, you think of energy. It's not dry. It's not boring. It's not putting you to sleep. It's like, how can I engage someone? How can I wake them up? How can I help them to laugh, to cry? How can I help them to move to some kind of action that is out of their comfort zone? And that's when I get the most joy, is when I challenge someone. And yes, I can be a little pushy. I can be a little challenging with my command, with my competition. And so I have to make sure that I soften it with other strengths like my individualization, my relator. And also I have to know that there's a great time to use those particular strengths when certain CEOs or certain leaders, they need direct, tough, great feedback. I got one quick story around that, if it's all right. I remember I was doing a workshop for a hospital, and the CEO of the hospital came up right after I'd done the workshop, and she was talking to everyone, and she was trying to get some feedback on her leadership from everyone in the room. There's probably 60, 70 people in there. And one or two people raised their hand, and all they could say was basically some kind of little platitude about this CEO. It was so kind or positive, like, you have the most beautiful red hair, or you are the sweetest and the best CEO in the world. It didn't have a lot of substance to it. So she genuinely was asking for feedback. So a little bit later, when I had an opportunity, I noticed she was on the back wall. So I went to her and just started talking to her a little bit. And I said, would you like some real feedback on you and your leadership? She kind of perked up, like, yeah, what do you have in mind? So I started talking to her about strengths. I said, this is a great tool to take as an assessment. I said, if you'd like to take it, then we can schedule a call and give you some feedback. That turned into one of my first strengths-based coaching gigs, doing executive coaching with the CEO. And she hired me to come in and to do team training with strengths as well. In fact, I think that was my very first strengths-based team training I ever did.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Brent. For those of you tuning in today, Brent O'Bannon, BrentO'Bannon.com, Strengths Champion Solutions. Brent, when we think about coaching to the influencing domain, so we're a coach, you're a coach. People are listening as coaches today. You're an MCC, in fact, so you have top level credentials in this regard. But if we're going to help someone grow this or have it even be coached ourselves, what are some things that we want to be aware of, maybe watch out for as we're developing the influencing domain from a leadership perspective?
Well, a couple of things come to my mind. Number one, I think many coaches may feel intimidated by the influencing strengths if they don't have those influencing strengths in their top 10. And they almost will defer in the sense of not being fully present to give the truth, to share the truth, to ask tough questions. Influencers need you to be even stronger with them. Influencers need you to actually ask tougher questions. So you can actually turn up the powerful questions, the tougher questions, even I think being quicker and more direct many times with influencers is important. Rather than slowing down, you may need to speed up with influencing strengths as well in the way that you coach them.
I appreciate that you said that. I'll tell you what, as an influencer myself, and I probably like you have had many coaches over the years, and I'll actually give them the disclaimer up front that I have a very limited attention that I can apply to something. And what captures my attention is compelling information. So the stronger, the more direct, the more consequential, the higher level of attention and engagement I'll give to the topic. It's just I can't unbe that. That's just how those strengths work. And you said it very well. Be strong with them. Be direct. Have the difficult conversation. Something that with other domains you may take more time to get there. This domain is, can you just cut the line and get me what you think I need to hear? Because I hear you working up to it, because my tune in is I see where you're going. Can we just cut the line and get to where you think you're taking me? And then I would add to what you said, be okay with the debate, because the debate is how an influencer learns. Now, when I say the word debate, some might hear or feel argument, disagreement. But in reality, this particular domain, that verbal process, that process by which they're talking their ideas out is the learning process. I had it said once that an influencer has to see what they say to know what they think, because whatever they say informs even them of what they're thinking on the topic, because it comes out through that process of thinking. So when it feels confrontive, that might not actually be where they land. And so when you have some comfort in the process, what you allow an influencer to do is to fully present their information, sometimes in the form of venting, sometimes just in the form of, I need to talk this all the way through, especially high communicators really got to talk through. High command sometimes has to do that, really talk through. So I think you caught that really well. And I would agree with Brent, and I don't know if this is your experience, Brent, but can you just be direct with me, please? Can you just tell me what you think? Then let's put it on the table. Let's put the cards out there, and now let's talk about it. And so, dear coaches, as you're hearing Brent today, as a master certified coach who has done literally tens of thousands of coaching sessions in his career, those were some good nuggets there. Brent, I think we also have to share some insights today with managers and leaders. So you got an influencer on the team, and maybe they're the only one of their kind. Maybe there's a couple of them. Maybe you are or are not with them. what are some ways that we can maximize influencers in the context of a team environment?
They are your intrapreneurs. And so if you will, as a manager, if you can look at ways, and by the way, more Gen Z, those that are in their early 20s that are in the workplace, as well as millennials, are very entrepreneurial in spirit. And so if you can give them opportunities to connect their aspirations in entrepreneur work, they may have a side gig or a side hustle or something like that, but they still are wanting to learn and grow about sales, or learn and grow about business development, or how to, experiment on a project. And so let them be your disruptors. Let them be your experimenters. Let them get in there and share new ideas and new ways of doing things. But here's the worst thing you can do for an influencer: put them by themselves. Put them by themselves. So if you lock them away in front of a computer.
Let's pause right there. If you're here, if you're listening leader, if you're listening manager, and you're hearing this, what Brent just said, you're gonna stir up trouble for yourself if you do this. You're gonna stir up trouble. Believe me, I think both Brent and I can speak for ourselves and all the coaching work we've done. Now you're asking for it. Please continue, Brent.
Yeah. So that means if you try to teach them a lesson by, well, I'm just going to shut you up and put you in a room behind a computer, doing paperwork, guess what? That person will get so disengaged, they will leave. And so if you want to retain, work on utilizing them and their superpower. But here's the second thing: they need your help to go from raw to refined. Influencers need mentoring, coaching, management, guidance, because we talk too much sometimes, or we get too loud sometimes, or we get too pushy sometimes, or we get too prideful sometimes. And we need humility. We need someone who still gets our heart, because our heart really is not just about ourself. It is about changing the world through people. And so sometimes people may get jealous or even indignant of those who speak up in the group or the meeting. So help us be more refined. That means, how do you have more emotional, social intelligence so that we're not pushing people away? We're attracting and we're influencing like salt.
That's good. That's good. When you think about this as a leader, as Brent's describing this domain, these folks sometimes you could picture them almost as a megaphone, whether it's actual volume or just influence, their ability to persuade, their ability to move people to some sort of opinion, some sort of action. As a leader, when you know you have that on your team, you want to harness it for good. You want to think in terms of, I want this on my side. And so you are influencing back. And the more you learn about what they need, what helps them to be at their best, then you have a very strong ally. I mean, these people are going to naturally take charge of projects if you put them out in front. They're naturally going to help you persuade others in or around the organization or out to your constituents or customers. They're going to help do that. And giving them voice, I would add one piece, giving them voice back to you. Sometimes with this domain, a little more access goes a long way. It might be that you give them an ability to message you, at will in an email or a text, whatever your preference, or, whatever communication, Slack, whatever you use, so that you want those ideas as they're coming up. As Brent said so well, you're helping them filter them. You're helping them develop them. You're helping them think through, because not all of them are going to be good. But what you want to be wise about is you don't want them running with something that you have not vetted first. You want to be the first one hearing it, so you can help them go, oh, and this is key, right, Brent? Receive it well. Start by receiving. I love that you're thinking that way. Love that you're going that path. Let's think that through for a second. Let's go with where does that lead? And you might get them going, okay, yeah, but might want to wait on that. Good idea. Let's wait on that. Let's get back to that at a different time. But that energy corralled in or encouraged in so that we're taking it where you want, that raw to mature version, Brent. So important for this domain, right?
Well, one thing you just said triggered an idea that, the ego is strong in influencers. And so they also need that recognition. They need that appreciation. Now, every strength and talent thing needs that. But I would dare say maybe influencers might need it in a verbal way. So verbal processing, verbal recognition tends to be really important for a lot of influencers.
I'm going to add to that, and public.
Ooh, yes, not just private, public attention. Yes.
We have this illustration we use for recognition. We say some people, they're like cactus. A couple drops a month and they're happy as can be, and they don't really like it public. And other folks, they're like orchids. And if you're not giving them a little couple sprays throughout the week, it's going to be a problem. And this particular domain, they're orchids often. And they really do need to have that. So let's say on average, according to science, people need about 2 to 3 really good moments where they're being recognized, appreciated, thanked, specific. So some need 1, and then some need 5 or 6. This domain might lean more that way more often than the other 3 domains because of by virtue of what they do and how they engage and what they put on the table, because this domain might have more risk tolerance naturally. And if they have more risk tolerance, high risk, high reward. And so there's some benefit when you can see that in these folks. Brent, as we're turning the corner here to wrap up our time, just once again, when you think about folks joining your mission, hearing about you today, wanting to get in touch with you, where can people find you? Best spots, Brent?
Yeah, BrentO'Bannon.com is the best place, as well as LinkedIn. It's always a great place to connect with other fellow coaches or entrepreneurs or leaders. So LinkedIn and definitely BrentO'Bannon.com.
Awesome. Brent, you've been a part of the strengths movement for a long time. You are one of the original leaders out here, thought leader. You've been doing a lot of work. Any parting shot for those getting into this, doing this work, being a part of this movement, what you've seen over the years, ways that you've watched it grow, maybe just some words of encouragement or just some thoughts on what you're seeing the future shape like?
Well, number one, I would say give you some kudos, Brandon. You and 34 Strong have really done an outstanding job of collaborating and growing a team. And so ultimately, all of us need other people. We need good relationships and people to connect with. And so staying in community. And by the way, I think, we all have preferences for different types of communities. So find that place where you shine and also where you're really appreciated, because life's too short not to enjoy. And I would say number 2, keep learning and growing about how to apply strengths in every sphere of life and work. There is so much work to be done in how to apply, even like you, Brandon, have started applying strengths to parenting. So applying strengths in all of these different domains of life, I think is exciting. And there's more research to be done. Like right now, me and one of my good friends are working on strengths-based coaching as an accelerant to employee engagement. And so we're looking at how can you pair those two and how does it influence employee engagement? So be a practitioner and keep innovating with those strengths.
Awesome. Dear listener, thank you so much for joining us today. Season 2 of the Strengths Whisperer, Coach to Coach. Today we covered the influencing domain. And if you would like to learn more about strengths, we have a resource for you, how to be a good teammate to me, something that we're happy to share with you. Just reach out to Brandon at 34strong.com. We'll make sure we get that resource in your hands and you have a place where you can reach our guest today, Brent O'Bannon, and he would be happy to just continue to enlighten you on your journey and point you in some good directions. Brent, thank you again for joining us. And listeners, we'll see you next time on Coach to Coach.
Thank you for tuning in to the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. Please feel free to reach out to Brandon to partner with 34 Strong for collaboration opportunities to serve your employees or clients together. If you are a strengths coach, lead a strengths-based team, or are a fan of strength, we invite you to receive our complimentary resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, Understanding My Contributions and Needs. Email Brandon_Miller at 34strong.com to connect, and he will gladly share this resource that will continue to unlock the power of strength.